A Mrs. Miracle Christmas is absolutely beautiful and everything I really hoped it would be. I really liked the Mrs. Miracle films that came before this. On the one hand, could anybody possibly take over the role of Mrs. Miracle from Doris Roberts? No. But on the other hand, I love Caroline Rhea. I've loved her since I was 7 years old. If anybody was going to take over those reins, I am so relieved it was her. She fits the role so beautifully, and I think she gave it her own angle, but still captured the magic of Mrs. Miracle, and it's such a beautiful film. It focuses on this family who live with their grandmother, or the woman's grandmother, and the grandmother is going through a bit of a difficult time. She's obviously getting older. She's not as agile as she used to be. So Laurel decides to call the agency to get some help for her grandmother. And that help is in the form of Gloria Merkel. And needless to say, Helen, the grandmother character, is not really keen on having Mrs. Merkel around because she's had her independence her whole life. She doesn't want to be babysat, to paraphrase her. But gradually over time, Gloria grows on her, and Helen begins to open up as a character, and we have this wonderful character journey that we go on as we discover more about Helen and what her life used to be like when she was married to her husband. Sadly, her husband passed away. I believe the Christmas before this was set, so it's a very sad time. It's also a sad time for Laurel and Will because of a certain child that used to be in their life who no longer is. I don't want to go into too much detail about their backstory and the problems that they're currently facing because I don't want to give away too much, but it definitely has a lot of emotional threads here. It's not so emotional that it's a depressive film and that you're going to watch it feeling down afterwards. It's a very uplifting film for many, many reasons, and it allows the characters, and in turn the viewer, to look at certain potentially negative situations, certainly very emotional and possibly distressing situations, in a different light, in a more positive way, looking at the silver linings, changing your perspective on things, and it can really give you a different viewpoint. If you are going through similar things, or if you have similar emotions at the time of watching this, it can give you the opportunity to look at things slightly differently, and I think that that's always something that's a great benefit. Of course, this is all done against the backdrop of Christmas. This is set within a couple of weeks leading up to Christmas, and we have a beautiful Christmas tree. Needless to say, it wouldn't be a Hallmark film without a gorgeous Christmas tree. It's not the most festive. We do have some festive songs in it. Laurel is a teacher, so some of her students are singing various Christmas songs, so the soundtrack is really brilliant. It's not the most festive in other ways, but that's mainly because a lot of the characters are not necessarily in the Christmas spirit, until of course Mrs. Merkel comes into their life and she allows them to see things differently and to change their perspectives. I really thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish, and I thought it was going to be predictable. There are signs that keep popping up that Will keeps noticing, and I was so certain I knew what those signs were pointing at. And I was wrong. And I'm not going to say what I thought it was, because I don't want to ruin it for you in case you perhaps think the same thing. But I was so sure I knew where it was going, and I kind of thought, if you do this, this is really predictable, it's going to be a really forced ending. But I was wrong. Thankfully, I was wrong about that. I also just want to mention the character of Mercy, played by the brilliant Jordyn Ashley Olson. Really loved that character. There was just something about her that I just thought was brilliant, very brilliantly performed. Definitely a shining star of a supporting character. Caroline Rhea was everything. Everything I knew she would be. Everything I hoped she would be. As Mrs. Miracle, I feel like it's one of the roles she was born to play. This is the kind of character she plays in Christmas films, and it always seems to work out right. And it doesn't surprise me for 1 second. I had very high hopes for a Mrs. Miracle Christmas. I wasn't sure what it would feel like, given that we have a different person portraying Mrs. Miracle, but it worked. It worked so well, it felt so right. If you haven't seen it, It's definitely worth watching. If you're a fan of Hallmark films, you'll definitely like it. But even if you're not that bothered about Hallmark films, it's one of those ones that I think can appeal to anybody. And Mrs. Miracle Christmas, absolutely worth the watch.